Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wednesday Build. This is episode 1.9, and today we're going to be talking about combating loneliness as an entrepreneur, tips from the battlefield to improve mood and mental health. Today we'll be featuring the KIT Matrix, which is the Keep in Touch Matrix, women's circles, Toastmasters, conferences, and so much more, including friends. As you may know, my name is Brittany Hernandez, and my friend Emily calls me the bee emoji, and my dad and my uncle call me Peanut and Brittle. I'm from San Diego, California, but I live in London now. I'm a veteran. I served on active duty in the United States Coast Guard for 4 years in Puerto Rico and Alaska, and I am a lawyer. I have a license in California, and after becoming a lawyer, I focused on intellectual property and entertainment law. I had some money left over for school from the GI Bill from being in the Coast Guard. So I decided to get a master's degree, which I got with distinction from the University of Exeter and London Film School in international film business. After my master's degree, I became the business development executive for a legal tech company out of Scotland called Vala, which focuses on helping self-representers in the UK to deal with their employment matters. I then became a Gavel expert, where I became really proficient at the tool Gavel, formerly Documate, and became more of a hybrid no-code, low-code developer. And this really has to do with the fact that because I'm a lawyer, I was able to speak the language of the law, as well as I developed a high proficiency in from a technical standpoint with the Gavel tool. So it really positioned me well to do well as a contractor with gig law as a Gavel expert. Since I was doing well and I was doing some Lightning Talks for Legal Innovators series with Gavel, the CEO, Dorna, invited me to be the global ambassador to law schools, which I'm always grateful for, and I love my position. And it has also provided me with the opportunity to create programs such as the Law Students in Legal Tech Access to Justice Fellowship, which is going on right now. And we just started week 7, which is so crazy. So I'm really excited about what we're learning and what we're doing. We're learning how to do a holistic approach to practicing law that includes business development techniques and understandings of customer relationship management, as well as different legal technologies that can be used, and doing a deep dive specifically on Gavel as well as a tool. I am also the creator and host of the Lightning Talks for Legal Innovators series with Gavel, as I mentioned, and we do a new episode of that every month on the last Thursday of every month. I'm also the creator and host of this show, The Wednesday Build, where every Wednesday I talk about something that's top of mind that has to do with entrepreneurship or specifically Gavel or other tools in legal technology and technologies outside of the law as well. I'm also the creator of the first free interactive digital magazine created on Gavel called Code Word Hex. And I'm the founder, course creator, and senior instructor of Chromium Academy, which has Gavel certification courses, as well as courses on software, Airtable, Go Full Page, and more coming soon. That's a little bit about me. Today, we're going to be talking, as I mentioned, about this idea around combating loneliness as an entrepreneur. The reason why I decided to go with this topic is the fact that I've been meeting a lot of entrepreneurs recently, and every single time I've met them, I've said something like, I just wanted to be around people because as an entrepreneur, someone who owns my own company, I spend a lot of time alone. And I get a lot of feedback that other people are feeling that way as well. So I really wanted to provide some insight into how I try to not feel lonely and how to create friendships with and maintain friendships both within my professional network and my personal network. And I am not perfect at this, and I am still learning, but there are a few things that I can concretely say have helped me feel less lonely. As someone who spends a lot of time alone every single day. So we're going to break this up into a couple of different sections. Just more like categories of people. So old friends and family, how to keep in touch and maintain your relationships with them. New friends and strangers, and then the professional community that you work within. So we'll continue from this point. Let's focus first on why, a little bit deeper into why I felt this was important, and that will transition us into some of the techniques. So I wrote this blog article not too long ago about how I used my therapy budget to buy my Upfront Bond 7 seat. And when I talk about Upfront, Upfront is a company by Lauren Curry, and she's amazing. Let's see, let me do Upfront. Let's see if Upfront Global comes up. So yeah, this is it's basically a company that's focused on changing confidence, not women. So it's for women and non-binary people, and it's a community where there is a 6-week course that focuses specifically on building confidence. So I purchased a ticket for Bond 7, which starts in June, which I'm really excited about. It's going to be super fun. I missed last year's, so I wanted to do this year's. Now, the reason why I bring this up is specifically around this first line, because it goes into sort of why I'm talking about loneliness and the importance of mood and mental health as an entrepreneur. So I wrote this line in April of 2022. I was having a panic attack in the middle of a company meeting, and it literally was so interesting because nobody was really like attacking me. Nobody was being like mean to me or something. It was just sort of, it was something around like a scheduling question or something like that. And I just broke down crying, and like my hands were shaking, and I was like just uncontrollably crying, and had to turn my camera off and just like try to breathe and not freak out. And it was such an interesting moment in my life because up to that point, I had only maybe had like 2 like outside of that, but those other 2 were in the last like month of that time frame. But prior to that particular month where I was having panic attacks a lot, I like had never had one, maybe once. And so what I was realizing in that moment is that I was just really, really raw emotionally as a person, that maybe I needed to get some help. And even thinking about it now is like making me emotional because it was really scary. And part of the reason why I was so emotionally raw at the time was that I had finished law school, and I finished the bar exam. I passed, thankfully, but I graduated in I graduated in technically January 2020. I took the bar exam February 2020, and it was March 2020 that COVID was a thing. And I actually had to come home early from a trip to Europe. And I was angry and frustrated about COVID because I felt like I had just been in a prison, basically. I mean, a fun prison where you have friends that are learning about the law like you and all that stuff. But law school was hard, and it was fun, and it was a lot, and it was your whole life, and it was everything. So, and I had literally, for practicing, doing practice tests and exam for the bar exam, I just literally locked myself away for like 2 whole months, and basically was in a quarantine and a self-isolation. So for the time that I was practicing and studying for the bar exam. So when I was finally free after 3 years or, 2.5 years or so of studying, I went to Europe, and I was on vacation, and I was traveling and having so much fun. And then COVID hit, and I felt like I was in jail all over again. And I just felt so angry and so sad. And I was uncertain about whether or not my master's program was going to go forward or not. So after all of that, I was already emotionally very raw from COVID, as we all were, but also from the trauma of that was law school in a way. And like I said, I loved law school in the sense that I did well and I enjoyed the friends that I got to meet and I learned so much that was really valuable, but it was definitely a lot. It was definitely the hardest educational experience I ever had. With all that being said, I went straight into a quarantine after I got back from Europe. I couldn't see my family and people had to like leave groceries outside my door for me and stuff like that. So, and then when I did get to go to my master's degree in and got to actually be on campus in Exeter, at least in the flats there. We only got to go to class 4 times. So my whole master's degree experience was also mostly on Zoom, and within a flat of only, there were 6 other people besides me. So that's just to say, I think we should recognize the fact that we've all been through a lot of stuff in the past couple of years. And even though COVID is less of a prevalent everyday experience like it was in 2020 and 2021, people are still getting it and it's still a thing and it's still affecting us. And the aftershocks of that experience, I think, are still causing ripple effects in our lives. So that's just to say we're already emotionally raw from what we've just been through as a world, as a people. And I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about loneliness within that context, especially since so many people after this kind of COVID experience have moved to online work, or hybrid. And that can feel very isolating. And it can feel, I mean, I'm always in my room alone filming or creating content or just all sorts of stuff. So when I am thinking about this idea of combating this loneliness and being alone a lot, I have to come up with ways to find people to hang out with and spend time with in person outside of my room. And I'm going to share some of the ways that I do that, as well as just sort of like, it doesn't always have to be in person, just sort of like maintaining relationships with other people and not just working all the time and not taking the time to do other more, like, not more interesting things, but other things, period. So one of the things that I've done is sign up for things like Upfront and the Bond 7 course. I know that I'm going to meet amazing people. I already have. I'm also going to the Upfront and Center conference. So if you're going to be around or would like to join us, you're welcome to. It's going to be in Glasgow, Scotland. It's this one here, Upfront and Center. So it's the schedule. Let's just look at the schedule here. So we're going to have some keynotes. There's going to be some poems. There's going to be some workshops on building your writing confidence, the art of personal branding with grace, parenting for humans, turning gender inequality into equity, activism in a world on fire, turning health inequality into activism. There's going to be some singing, another keynote on turning fraud into positive change. That, I think this person is actually like a cyber fraud or like accounting fraud or something cool like that. Anyway, so that's just to say Upfront and Center is a conference that I'll be going to make new friends. And I'm not following this agenda very closely, but just go with me on it. But that's just to say one of the things that I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be attending a lot of conferences this year and participating in things like Upfront's Bond course that allows you to then be a part of their Upfront global community, which has a ton of people within their community that are working hard to just change their relationship with confidence. And I think Lauren is a great leader in this movement here as well, who I've spent time with Lauren, and she's a really amazing person. So let's talk a little bit about maintaining friendships with your friends and family really quick. So let's talk about this one first, because it goes into the period, what I was doing during the period after my master's degree and before I started working at Vala. So there was a slight, just a few month gap between these two things. So what happened was I finished my master's degree, and then But during like my dissertation time, I was visiting my family at home in San Diego. So anytime I wasn't working on my dissertation, I was trying to spend time with them since I was there. But I wasn't really applying for jobs, which was not the best. And so it made it to where when I got back to London, I hadn't really put any job applications out, but I had graduated, and that meant there was going to be literally like no money coming in outside of what I had in savings. So that was a really tough time. It was actually the hardest time of my whole life. I was just having the most financial struggle in my whole life was between the master's degree and my job at Bala, which was between when I graduated. I think I was technically done with my course in, let's say, December. And well, okay, so I technically, like, I got back, I submitted my dissertation in like August, end of August, and got back to London in September. And so between September, let's say 14th or so, until January 10th, I was unemployed. I was able to take on some clients from my practice, but I was trying to wind down my law practice so that I could focus on sort of getting into legal technology, or just sort of starting my career from outside of trying to build my own practice. So that was not my emphasis or focus at the time. Anyway, there's just to say that during that time, though, even though it was really difficult from an emotional standpoint, a financial standpoint, I actually had a ton of time, because you can only apply for so many jobs per day and, respond and reach out and so on. So I actually ended up having some time and headspace. And during that past year, I had been doing a lot of listening on Audible to different like personal development books and things like that. And I felt like a lot of personal development books were amazing, but they were always telling you something to do, like 7 habits of highly effective people, 7 principles for making marriage work, 6 habits of highly effective people, or 6 habits of high performers. And there was like 5 agreements, and the fifth agreement and 4 agreements. And there's always like a plan or a process, and there's always like numbers attached to them and so on. But I just felt like there wasn't really one centralized process or thing that put all of those things together. And that's actually when I started my company, Cormayam Kamai LLC, where Kamai stands for Where Knowledge Meets Application and Implementation. Because I was just kind of like, okay, everyone stop. I know that you've told me like these many, many millions of things, but can someone just put something together that tells me how to put all these things into an actual daily practice? How can I actually do these things in real life? And so I ended up developing my own model called the Hackett model, which I have a registered copyright for, which looks like this. It's called the Hackett Workbook, Design Yourself, an integrated life design implementation model. And I've actually taught workshops about this, and I run retreats every year on this that I'll go into later as well. And this whole thing goes on this idea that you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And your system can be one where you've created a system for keeping in touch with friends, finding new friends, engaging with new friends, and creating a system to avoid loneliness or encourage or increase your level of contentment with your life and quality of life, which includes a nurturing community. So essentially, the Hackett model breaks down into a couple of steps. The first is decide, which is decide who you want to become, calibrate your mindset and energy, design your system by bringing awareness to current habits, do, which is implement and test your system, do some daily exercises and utilize some of the other tools, and then reflect and correct on the day, the week, the month, and the year, and then repeat. So I go through this whole model, but I specifically wanted to point out this one called My Non-Negotiables. So let me get there. So the reason why I bring this one up is I needed to make it a non-negotiable to have time with other people in my life. So if you see here, this is my non-negotiables for 2021. So I had things like 8 hours of sleep, between 1.5 to 3 hours dedicated to my partner, an hour block of time set aside for exercise 6 days a week, nutritious meals, 1 full day off of work per week at least, and then 5 hours per week for the time with friends, family, and mentors, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for work or like creation time for meditation each day to feel and express gratitude and love, at least one adventure outside of the house each week, and time for basic hygiene and showering every day. But I want to focus in on this part where I said 5 hours per week for the time with friends, family, and mentors. So what this model does is it takes your beliefs and your affirmations and turns them into non-negotiables that support or facilitate or connect to what you've decided to be your basically your values and what's important to you. And then you assign them to your non-negotiables that are driven by your values and what's important to you onto an iAssign planner, which is sort of like the rough draft of what would later be my or your sort of weekly schedule and calendar. So for example, you can see like, okay, now I've taken my non-negotiables and I have to decide or assign my non-negotiables to somewhere on my calendar. So my time with my partner is around here, and my time for a friend is here, and my time for an adventure, time for friend and family calls. So I just sort of like got a general idea of where on my calendar would this be realistic. My calendar looks a little bit different than this now, but not by that much, to be honest. And then you break down each particular day type into more actionable time periods and really getting specific so that it's actually realized. So this would be a day type B, and this one's a day type C, which are like Wednesdays and Thursdays, and so on. So you do this for each type of day. And then you break this process down into sort of a master weekly schedule, which can look like this. And then you break this down even further from an Atomic Habits perspective and habit stacking and habit loops into this process where you say and answer this question or sentence that says, in T1, referring to like this time block, at this time, I do this action for this duration in this room or this place. The obvious, visible, and sensory cues for this juncture action and its sub actions are, and then I say what they are, and so on. So this is kind of that process, and it talks about how it supports from a short-term and long-term reward perspective, what it supports and how it supports my identity. So that's kind of this process of breaking it down and down and down. And then eventually you get to having a weekly schedule that looks like this, or you can have it colored like this. And kind of these are just different variations of the same thing. So that is the process that I break it down, and you'll see that I have sort of like call with family, call with a friend, time with my partner, calls with a friend. And actually this is how I do it, which I'll show you with the KIP matrix, which is the keep in touch matrix for my friends and family to fill in these slots here. So just doing this one time back a couple years ago, I still use that today in that system today. So if we go to the KIP matrix, this is what I was saying about the keep in touch matrix. So I built out this system that would make it to where I could figure out who are the most important people in my life that I want to keep in touch with, and how, like from my old friends and my family, and how can I actually put them into a rotation so that we don't lose touch. And the way that I approached the conversation with each of the people that I put in here was basically that because I live far away, and because you're so important to me as a friend or as a family member, I would love for us to be able to regularly have calls with each other as we would have if I was living around you. And you can do this for people who are close to you as well, but just to like make sure you're always checking in with each other. And it also reduces the cognitive load around keeping in touch with your friends, to be honest, because you don't have to be like, oh my gosh, like 3 months have gone by and I haven't even talked to my friend. Instead, you can just let it go out of your mind because, obviously, like you keep thinking about them and keep in touch with them, but that's just to say that you would not have to worry so much about it because you know that it's on the calendar to talk to them on specific days. So it makes it to where not more than that many days goes by without you checking in with them. With mine, for example, I have some that are individuals and some that are family and some that are like groups. So we have like a group call from people I went to school with for law school, people I went to school with for my master's degree, some of my best friends. So my best friend, Sammy Jo, who I've known for many, many, many years since high school, my friend Emily, my friend Connie, my friend Renata, my mom and dad, my grandma, my brother and his fiance, Selena, who's one of my best friends as well. So I have my immediate family that is every Sunday at a specific time. And actually these time slots are pretty similar as well. I think I've only moved this one this one's still 7:30, but this one's now 8 p.m. And this one is still 5 o'clock, but some people need 6 o'clock on Saturdays. But otherwise, this is exactly the same. And I still use this particular model. And basically all you really need to do, you don't necessarily have to write these out the way I did, but what you would do is you just need to do this. Decide who you want to talk to, which days you're going to be available, and make time for every time in that slot there's somebody there. Then you just put them in your calendar on a repeating schedule for every 35 days, which is every 5 weeks, which I think is a pretty good check-in schedule for long-term friends and family. I talk to my family every week, but from a long-term friends perspective, I think 4 weeks is too short and 6 weeks is too long. So that's what I do. And like I said, I kind of just sent each of them a message and I was just like, hey, I would love to just make it to where you're so important to me. I would love it if we could just make sure we check in with each other every 5 weeks, even if it's a quick call. It doesn't have to be a full hour. It could be just so that we don't lose touch with each other. So I think that people really appreciate being thought of so much to the point that you would build time in for them on your schedule rather than seeing it as a negative thing. So that's how I keep in touch with my friends and my family, the people I've known for a long time and from school and things like that, on a rotation that I created while I was unemployed and created my own business and created this tool that I still use to this day. So that is the KIT matrix, or the keep in touch matrix, that and the system that I've built around that. Now, as we think and move into this next section around new friends and strangers, so I'm going to actually talk about strangers first. One of the most beautiful ways that I've met people sometimes has just been like walking around. So when I was having a lot of anxiety attacks during January, February, March, April, May, June, of 2022, I had to just start going outside more. And it helped me feel less lonely and less anxious and to have more calm when I would start taking walks twice a day, as much as I could. I can't do that as much these days because I do a lot more filming, which requires me to be indoors without like the noise and the wind and stuff. But I still do try to make sure it's a non-negotiable to go for a walk at lunch, even if it's just around the block. But the point I'm trying to make here is the variety of faces really helps me feel less lonely, because if I only see the screen, virtual people on Zoom, and my partner, and maybe the virtual faces of my friends and family when we do our calls, that is not a very high variety of faces, which makes me feel like my world is small. My life is small. So what helps with that for me personally is walks outside, because when you walk outside and you feel like you're part of the world, and that experience helps me to feel less alone. And especially as an entrepreneur who spends a lot of time alone. So one of the cool things I was going to say that helps me to meet strangers is a lot of the time when you're walking around, you'll go into different shops, or you'll see the same types of people who are working at their jobs that are at the shops around your house all the time. You'll discover new places, and you'll pop into new places, and you'll walk by someone. And sometimes when I'm taking a bus somewhere, for example, I'll sit next to someone and become friends. That actually happened not too long ago. I sat down with all these bags of groceries next to this lady who is a little bit older than me. And she was just really funny and sweet and kind. And the first thing she said was, you have a lot of bags. You need to get one of those rolly things, whatever. And I was like, you're right. I need to get one of those. And she was like, yeah, I have one. And we had like a whole conversation. And at the end of it, she was like, we should have dinner sometime, like just as friends, like to like chat, because she was doing film stuff and I have a master's in film business. So we ended up getting dinner together and having a chat and going out to a pub and just kind of like becoming friends. So I think that when we kind of just put our bodies in a place where there's people that are strangers, strangers don't have to be a bad, scary thing. Like ever since we were kids, we grew up with this idea of like stranger danger, and that you should be so cautious and conservative. But we're grown-ups now, and we can be a little bit more discerning about who we spend our time with and who we encounter in the world, I think. So that's not to say let your guard down completely, but just to say that it's okay to make friends with new people that you meet on the street. And it can be really helpful, like I said, to meet people with a variety of different faces, especially in London specifically. I feel like there is a huge advantage in that it's so metropolitan, and there's so many different cultures that are mixing here. People are from everywhere in the world. And it's so amazing to walk down the street and to see not just tourists, but people who live here, who speak every language, are of every color, are from so many different beautiful cultural backgrounds that you can learn from just by walking by them and listening and paying attention. So that would be one point around strangers. Now let's talk a little bit about new friends. One of the most important things I did in the past 3 years was join a social club in LA when I was living in LA called Yem. It's actually not a thing anymore. The person who was running this at the time, her name is Ling Q. She is a fabulous person. And I met her through a friend who was part of the club. Her name is Sasha. So I went to a USC class with Sasha in 2019, and we became friends. We were both extroverted and loved to answer questions and all this stuff. It was a class on independent feature filmmaking and distribution. And so we became friends. And then she lived in LA, and then I was living in San Diego for law school at the time. And then after law school, between in the 6 months between when I graduated and took the bar exam and before I went to my master's degree, I lived in LA with my brother and his fiance in Marina Del Rey. And so I called up Sasha and I was just like, hey, how are you doing? I live here now. We should get together sometime. And she said we should go to one of my friends' dinners that she hosts with her social club called Yen. And it was absolutely 100% the most important thing I did that year was go and join this social club. It wasn't super expensive. It was beautiful. And the people were so lovely. And I've made so many friends from being a part of this club. They had home cooked meals once a week. And I know all these people who are showing up as well. It was just the most beautiful environment. We had such a great leader who now she does a lot more traveling. So I think that was part of the reason why it's not a thing anymore. But the idea was actually a lot of the people who came to this club had also been a part of, I want to call it Habitas, something like this. Habitas, something like this. I think it's this one. Hospitality Management Group. Well, it was like a social club. I think it was called Habitat. Habitas Members Clubhouse. Yeah, it's like some kind of thing like this, like a members only club type of thing, where let's see, yeah, the 6-story Habitas Clubhouse. So yeah, it was something like this where you would, I wasn't a member of Habitas, but I know a lot of people were that joined the YEM community, because I think Habitas is also not a social club anymore. I'm not sure, I'd have to double check. But the point was that a lot of people who became YEM members had previously been Habitas members. And so what I loved about this was the fact that everyone was super, super lovely. Like everyone was super nice and also doing really cool things. Like they were all people who owned their own businesses, who were really trying hard to be good people at the same time as making money. And you know, I'm really sensitive to people who are like fake or that are too like have too much of an ego or things like that. I'm pretty open and friendly and everything, but I connect with people who are super genuine, especially people who are like just always trying to like strive to be better people and to never forget that like that we're just humans and that we're just here to try to like figure it all out. Nobody knows what they're doing. We might be really, really good at a couple of things, but at the end of the day, we're just trying to like make it through together. And so anyway, so I highly recommend joining a social club of some type where the people are really genuine. I met, like I said, so many amazing people here. They always had amazing events and they always had really lovely dinners. And I wish there was one like that here, and I really miss it. And that the place was super gorgeous. I would love to maybe have one of my own in the future as well, just to have a space for people that I got from this particular experience. So from this experience, I met lots and lots of new friends, one of which was my friend Jess. So Jess is Jessica Warren. Jess is one of the most fabulous people I've ever met. I absolutely love her so much. And she runs women's circles here in London. So she lives like me in Notting Hill or just in this area. And so we actually got together because the owner of this YEM home community, Ling, like I mentioned, knew that I was going to be moving to London for my master's. And she said, oh, while you're there, can you meet up with my friend Jess and give her this facial oil or whatever? So I ended up meeting up with Jess, and she is now one of my best friends. And I just love her so much. Anyway, so I ended up doing some relationship coaching with Jess, and we became friends through this mutual connection that I made through YEM. And she actually also hosts women's circles, which I had never done before. I'd never gone to one before, and I had never heard of them before. So a women's circle is a place where women can come together, sit in a circle, and meditate together and sort of talk about a specific theme. Sometimes it's about love or self-respect or confidence or our vision for ourselves. And what Jess does is she usually does a collaboration. So she'll do one part of it, and then she'll have a collaborator who does another part of it, such as intuitive movement. Or I actually collaborated with her recently and did a session on the Hackett model, where we went through some of the worksheets and planned out some of our next year together, or this year, as it were. So one of the things I would recommend is going to things like women's circles in your community. They're one of the best ways to make new friends who are trying to be good people. You can tell right away that actually Jess is really good at vetting people for me. I kind of think of her as like my friend filter, because a lot of my new friends have come from being Jess's friends and going to her women's circles. And Jess just has like a really keen sense of who's being genuine, who's not, and like who she wants in her like world and who she doesn't. And she's not afraid to say like respectfully, like, I think it's not going to work out between us. So I feel very sort of honored to be her friend. But that's just to say that she kind of does these sort of 8 to 10 people circles once a month. And so there's always stuff like this going on. And actually somebody else I met through Jess is Ludmilla, who is a Kundalini instructor. And she is actually also one of the most fabulous people ever. She came to one of my retreats and did a sound bath meditation for us and some different practices that helped us move our bodies while we were planning our goals for the next year. And she also runs women's circles that I like to go to every month as well. And I haven't done her Kundalini yoga class, but I've gone to some of her events at different markets and conferences and stuff. That's fabulous. So I just highly recommend finding things in your community like this. There's surely going to be things that are like co-ed in nature that have a similar type of setup where people can come together to improve themselves in some way. And one example I think is Toastmasters. It's not necessarily like a women's circle, but it's kind of like similar in a way in that people are coming together to practice something to make themselves better. So I actually heard about Toastmasters from Jess, and I was kind of talking about how I'm going to be doing a conference where I'm going to be speaking on some panels and doing a workshop. And she mentioned that she used to do Toastmasters here in London in our area, and suggested that I talk to them and just go to one of the sessions, because you can go for free. You just can't give any feedback or do any of the speeches if you're not a member. So I actually went to one last Tuesday, a week from yesterday. And I went to this Paddington one, which was really, really good. So I highly recommend this. It was really cool to get to see like what other people are doing, how they speak, and what feedback was given. And I'm still like kind of figuring out if I want to join as a member or not, but I think it's okay to like just try things out and see what you think about it. But what I liked about this as well is it's again kind of a built-in way to make new friends. You go into this room and there's a schedule and an agenda for the evening where you'll have a certain number of speakers that are running through their speeches and whatever. And then members give some feedback. And then at the very end, some guests can give feedback as well. Kind of more though on the whole setting. So it's just these kinds of things where you can find ways to combat loneliness, improve mood and mental health by being in person with other human beings. And as an entrepreneur, this can be really hard because you're kind of considering the cost benefit. You're having a cost benefit analysis about everything. And the cost benefit analysis here would be like, well, if I'm going to spend 1 hour there, I'd rather, if I have 1 hour off, maybe I would sleep or watch a movie or something. But to get a chance to be in the room with other real people can be highly, highly valuable. So that kind of goes into the idea of new friends and strangers, and all of these different communities have WhatsApp groups and or Slack groups. So I was just going to show you quickly that if you look at mine, we have a cacao ceremony invitation from the Rise Room Club, which is from Amy. So this is somebody who I went to her group training, like personal training class, and she's fabulous. But she always is finding like really cool things to go to and sharing that with her community. You have, this is the Product Folks No Code community that they're always having events going on. This is the Women's Circle that Jess has. So talking about like different things that are coming up. I have a church group, and this is the Queen Mary one that has to do with like legal innovation. So there are many Slack groups, WhatsApp groups, and so on that you can join. One that I really like, so this one's mine, my personal one that my company has, work around the retreats, like the Brighton retreat. We have a book club and a fit club and stuff like that. Then you have like the Gavel community. So this is for people who are interested in Gavel or use Gavel a lot. And we have lots of different announcements. And this is where you can also see feature updates and stuff like that. But it's a way to kind of connect with people who are interested in the same types of things that you are. I recently also joined the No Code Founders Slack community, as well as just became like a member of their community. And there's actually some really amazing people in here, not actually, but there just are amazing people in here who are really engaged and interested. So that's a really good one to look into as well. Obviously, mine are a lot around like technology and no code tools and stuff like that. Then you have the product folks, which is really good as well. And they have like tons of stuff going on. She Codes is from a course that I've taken and I'm still working on this year, which teaches you how to code. And then the Legal Technologist is a more new one. It's a relatively newer one by Mark, who put this together for the Legal Technologist community. So these are just a couple of suggestions as well, especially for people who are usually in my network that would be interested in sort of technology. The other thing I would mention for combating loneliness is around conferences. So as I mentioned, I'll be going to the Upfront and Center conference in Glasgow, this one here. So I'll be going, that's in actually not that far away. I think it's like a week from Saturday or maybe 2 weeks, can't remember. So this one's coming up super soon. Oh, March 11th. Yeah. So in 10 days, I'm going to Glasgow I'm going to be there for a couple days and I'm just super excited. I think it's going to be awesome. So finding events like this where you can be in person with other people who care about bettering themselves and are interested in meeting new people and are lovely and gonna sing and dance together, and there's going to be a party in the evening, which is going to be super fun. So finding these types of events is really important. Another event that I'm going to be a part of, if we find this here, let's go quickly to this one, is coming up soon. Let me just find the announcement really quick. It's going to be this one on this one here. So I'm going to be going to this Future Law 2023 conference in Tallinn, Estonia, May 26th through 27th. So this is another one I'm going to be going to that I highly recommend. There's going to be a ton of people there, which is going to be so cool. So I do highly recommend that you come. You can meet me and some other really cool people who are in this type of no code, low code, and legal tech and tech community. And I think the organizers have done just a really good job at putting together a great agenda. So I'll be going to that. I'll also be going to Legal Growth Geek and Legal Geek. So they have a new conference in London that's coming up in June, which I already got my ticket for. So it's this Legal Growth Geek. This is the new mid-market event, 7th of June in Shoreditch. So I've already got my ticket for this one. And then I'm going to be going to this one in Shoreditch on the 4th and 5th of October. So I've just focused on finding opportunities to meet people within my professional community that I would get along with by going to events that interest me, speaking at events that interest me, and really participating in them fully in every way I can. So I think that's a really good way to combat loneliness as well, is just connecting with your professional community at these different types of conferences, and learning about what other people are doing, which everyone's doing something super interesting in my opinion. So the other thing I would point out as we're talking about sort of like in-person events where you're connecting with people who are within your sort of community and things that you like to do, is my own retreat. So I run an annual retreat every December where we talk about the Hackett model and we go through the process together. And we create our we create our plans for the next year. So we do that in the first weekend in December. And this year, it's going to be December. The actual retreat itself will be the 7th through the 10th of December, but I always recommend that people come one day early and leave the day after. You can kind of take a look at this on the website here at retreat.chromium.pro, and you can apply to join us in the next one. Which I haven't decided where we're going to go yet, but it will probably be in maybe Portugal. So maybe Spain. I haven't decided yet. But last year in December, we went to Brighton and we stayed in this gorgeous Airbnb. And yeah, I just had a lovely time with everyone. There were 6 of us and we spent a couple days together in Brighton. We did some hiking and had a lot of yummy food. We spent a lot of time together also doing some amazing art projects and had a guest speaker and a couple of different things. So I would highly recommend that you do stuff like this. If you come to mine, I'd be super happy for you to come. But if you just do something like this, where you can have a smaller group, where you create really lifelong friendships with people who you get along with, I think that's really valuable as well. So with that being said, if you have any questions about today's talk or any of the other sessions of the Wednesday build, then you can reach out to me. I'll give you my contact information in a moment, but do feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to connect. And for announcements, just to say that this is the Wednesday build. New episodes are live every Wednesday. So when I do these, I allow people to kind of come to the live recording if you would like to. And I also have Code Word Hex, which is a free interactive digital magazine that I built on Gabble that comes out with new issues every Tuesday. For courses, I have Chromium Academy, which has courses on software and Airtable, Go Full Page, and more, including Gabble certification courses if you're interested in getting certified at the basic, silver, or gold test out levels. We also, as I mentioned, are doing the Law Students in Legal Tech Access to Justice Fellowship, which I run for Gabble. And we're, as I said, in week 7, but we're accepting applications until March 28th, because there is going to be a break so people can catch up before we have a hackathon competition in end of April, early May. There's also the community that I showed you, and also the Chromium Global community, which is more around people who are taking my courses in Chromium Academy, and also the active Slack group, which I showed you for Gabble, is a really great place to meet people as well. So thank you so much for your time and attention. I hope this was informative, and we're going to have our next session in a week on Wednesday, the 8th of March at 10 a.m. Pacific time. It's going to be called Build in Time for Failure, trust me. And the reason why I say this is I just got way too close for comfort in the past 2 weeks with kind of not doing this, and it really just stressed me out. So I'm going to end this here and just say that if you would like to connect with me, you can connect with me on LinkedIn or via email at brittany@chromium.pro. And if you'd like to inquire about Gabble, you can reach me at brittany@gabble.io. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you next time.